Hello, music friends. Today, I am so excited to have my fellow author, Mary Felkins, here with me. Hi, Mary.
Hi there, Ashley. I tell you, it's the highlight of my day when I hear you say, "Hi, music friend." I feel like
Oh, thank
it's so
you.
sunshiny. Just, it's very much your brand. I love it. So,
Oh, thanks.
as one
It
who's not
just
musical,
seeps into all the aspects of my life. Yes.
right?
Well, since we're both inspirational fiction authors,
Yeah,
I'd like you to tell
yeah.
me a little bit how you got into writing.
I got into writing very unconventionally. And I think a lot of people will expect this is the part where the author says, "Well, I have a degree in journalism, I have a degree in English literature," which is not my story. My degree is in nutrition. And then I got a master's degree in nutrition. Ha ha ha. So, but I was always doing some kind of writing, classic story, though, writing stories as a child, but it wasn't kind
Right.
of my dream.
Mhm.
I'm finding as I'm reading letters that my parents wrote to each other, they had a great gift of writing. Even the way Dad would express himself in email, I think you really do have a great gift. So maybe that's part of it, but really it was just a way to help make money. That's kind of a
Oh, wow.
hilarious part of my story in
Yeah, that is
2012.
different than a lot of the
Yeah, yeah,
typical
it's
writing.
comical, but we were just kind of having this conversation, my husband and I, about how are we going to pay a bill. And I'd had a story idea in mind, but it was just kind of a place I would go when stressed, and just would kind of
Mhm.
imagine these characters or play out this scenario, or kind of do like I would do with Ken and Barbie when I was little and make them talk and dialogue. And
And
I
like them in
literally
the
said,
story.
yeah,
The little
yeah,
shout out to them. That was
exactly.
cute.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, I remember that. That's funny. But I just said to him, "I'll write a book." And that's the worst thing to say to your husband when you're looking at how are we going to pay the water bill.
Right. That's a really pie in the sky start. It takes a little while to get going. Yeah.
And but he's been very supportive of that, and I'm really grateful. So then it was just a matter
And
of what
several
do I
books later, you're
do?
still going.
Yeah.
So
Was just then just learning how to craft the novel. And the
Mhm.
key was at going to a conference saying, "Okay, I'm going to take my 200,000 word manuscript story,"
Oh
which
wow.
was ridiculous, and expect to have a lot of attention for that. And it really was just a place where I learned that I don't know how to
Right.
craft the story. You have this
Right.
story, but you know, the order
Most of
that
us
you do things
don't know what we're
matter.
doing at
Mm-mm,
first. At least
mm-mm.
it was not intuitive for me. Some authors say that
No.
it's intuitive. I had 100,000 words of no plot line, like
Yeah,
nothing happening.
yeah. And this is part of the joy, the process of just it's a little bit like, to me, throwing paint on the canvas, and you're just going like that and seeing
Yes.
what happens. But so it was an very humbling to have an author read the first scene that I had at the time. I couldn't even tell you how I started it. Probably
Right.
when she was born, the character, for all I know. That's how much I
Once
knew
upon a
about
time, this
backstory.
character was born.
And she just said, she affirmed that I knew how to write, but just needed to learn the craft. So it was just a commitment to find where those sources were. And of course, conferences, been to
Right.
several conferences. And so it's just been a journey, and have an online support group through my book therapy and a craft partner. That's something that I started about 2 years ago. Met
Oh, that's
Patty
awesome.
Frampton. She's in Washington. And we just agreed, hey, let's talk, every week. And I just carved that out, put it in my schedule that I'm going to talk to Patty, and she's probably going to say, no, that won't work. Do this. And no, that won't make sense. Do this. And so, and then,
Makes a world of difference, though.
yeah,
Gets you out of your own head and
yes,
kind of bouncing ideas
yes,
off.
yes. Yeah. And I'm just trying to consider, do I just then toss everything because that's what she says, or it gives me an opportunity to mull over it and think, well, she
Right.
doesn't fully know, and I have to trust what I do know and kind of how I'm going to bring that home.
Yes.
But so that's really, it started because we needed to pay the bills, is the short answer.
That is wonderful. I've not ever heard that being the reason to start writing.
And you don't go into writing to make money. If you do, that's a
No,
blessing,
but
and
it's nice to make money, but
yes,
usually
it
it's
is.
not
Yeah,
what
it's
what
not
it
cheap.
starts with.
It's not
No.
cheap. Yeah.
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 Oh, well, that's so
So,
cool. Well, tell us a little bit
uh,
where like what state you're from, and then maybe what state kind of you're writing in, or the setting for your most recent release. For my people who
Let
are
me
viewing, You Are the Reason, or my
Oh,
audio listeners, You Are the Reason, which
that's
I
great.
loved. I had it as a poolside read this summer,
Mm.
so definitely
I always
sitting on
think
my
of
beach
water
chair.
sprinkles and somebody tripping over your lawn chair and spilling their Coke Zero on it. I'm like, ah, yeah.
That is true. Maybe I shouldn't have admitted that. But everyone at
Oh,
my
it's
pool, they're
okay.
like bringing their
That's okay. I know what
coffees and
happens to my
everything.
books when I'm outside, and I think, okay, you're not being nice to this. You're sweating, and the pages are wrinkling. But so I'm
And
from
then I feel guilty that the
Texas.
characters are working really hard in this book, and I'm, sitting there enjoying my time.
That's the whole point. You get to just sit back and enjoy. So, or if you decide you don't feel like being that character, you can kind of remember, oh, it's just fiction. I'm not really being chased by a bear. But
Right, right.
no. So I was raised in Houston, Texas, and I will always be a Texas girl. All of my
I
family's
love
in
Texas.
Texas. And then we
Yeah.
moved. Bruce is my husband. We have 4 kids. We had 2 at the time in 97, have 2 more. So I'm a mom of 4 young adults.
Wow.
And so we
Yeah.
moved to Hickory, North Carolina. It was with his job, IBM at the time, which I joke
Mhm.
means I've been moved. And
Oh, that's funny.
and
Yeah.
and I with my background in nutrition, I was working some at a hospital, just very few hours consulting and diabetes treatment center. And then I started, this is the writing part of me that the Lord brought forward, but I didn't realize the creative part was then I created a nutrition program at a grocery store called To
Mhm.
Market with Mary. So it was like an hour and a half educational tour where I thought, I've been talking to people and doing nutrition consulting across the desk. What would happen if we actually made the shopping, the grocery store where they shop, the classroom? And
I
let's
love
actually
that.
take products off the shelf and say, do you know what this really means when it says wheat bread? Maybe the packaging is just cellophane brown and it makes it look healthy and it isn't really. So without slamming
Mhm.
the grocery store, that was kind of an agreement I had. I just needed to borrow product and take the the clients through the aisles. That's how I spent my time. And but I
That's
what
really
but
cool.
even in Houston, I was writing a 12-week weight management program called The Right Way, WEIGH. Ha ha ha. It was just
Okay.
kind of a
Yeah.
play on that. And
Yeah.
there was another program that I was asked to write for the Pregnancy Care Center that called Great
Mhm.
Expectations. So just healthy eating. So it
Right.
was kind of like a place where I was starting to realize the roots of division between
Mhm.
the formal education and what I feel very much, even not a call, but a mandate to do, which is to write and fiction.
Mhm.
I write inspirational devotions as well, but my happy
Right.
place is fiction where
It's the
I
fiction.
I will share what I've learned recently, and that is that I see this as an opportunity to smuggle truth. Okay, so I'm
Mhm.
borrowing a quote from C.S. Lewis when I say this. He wrote a lot before he wrote fiction, and when he started writing fiction, a lot of people really enjoyed that, and it drew a wide audience. And he said that any amount of theology can be smuggled into people's minds without their knowing it, under cover of romance, meaning fiction,
Mhm.
and they don't realize it. And it really struck me. I felt like that was the Lord's seal of, I didn't need more affirmation, but just this is what I'm asking you to do is give an enjoyable read, but the truth that the characters have to eventually discover
Right.
based in scripture too is what we're after. And so I really would call myself a truth smuggler then, if you want to just kind of consider it that way. And it's just a joy. It really is.
Oh, well, that's wonderful. Yes. Well,
Yeah.
I really enjoyed your recent book. So can you tell us a little bit more about our characters? Uh, where we have Everly, who is a very play by the rules kind of heroine, right?
Yes.
And I was so excited about the leading man, Gabriel, because my baby nephew is actually named
Oh,
Gabriel.
That's
Yes.
wonderful.
And so I
Well,
had to tell my sister, I was like, oh, you need this book because it has Gabriel
yeah.
in it. So tell us a little bit about the inspiration for them.
My sister Carol is a CPA. Well, I have lots of
Okay.
siblings, 5 older
Yes.
siblings. Carol is a CPA, so I got a lot of inspiration from her as well as my niece, and they're both acknowledged in the book. So for example, the Cantrell Chancellor Cantrell that's featured in the book,
Okay.
that's her
Yes.
last name. So,
Okay.
and I really just saw, what would happen if somebody got this really big inheritance, and really that would be the worst. What kind of personality would not want to have an 1846 dilapidated, mansion to deal with? And so she's honor bound to restore it because that's what her mom wants her to do. So then the romance piece, and mom's who's passed away, the conspiracy is that she says, I really need you to hire this guy who's the best in historic restoration. And so thus is the romance. And so the question all along is, did mom really set this up before she passed away? I think she set this up. I think this
Yes.
is, but Everly, the story with that name, it's not a common name as a first name. It's actually a last name. There's a couple in our church, Matt and Lauren Everly. And I took this idea to a 5-day intensive retreat back in 2017. And I was actually in a brainstorming group with Rachel Hauk. And she, I couldn't quite figure out the first name. I said, I know it can't be Lauren because that's ridiculous. I know a Lauren. And she literally just said, how about we switch this? What if you call her Everly? And I thought, wow, that would make sense when you consider the fact that it's a parent or a guardian that names the child. When you're thinking of character
Right.
names, the character
Mhm.
doesn't name themselves, they're
Right.
stuck with it. And her mom was a little bit eccentric, from the Woodstock era. Her name was Marigold.
Yes,
Of
I
course,
like
she
that, the
would
hippie
pick
hair.
Everly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Orion, the middle name, is because of the
That was beautiful.
constellations that,
Like the stars. Yeah.
yeah, so just shoot for the stars, Everly. And so that was really fun to think. It fit. It really fit. And so her mom's just trying to get her to dream, stop living within this rigid
Right. Because
ledger
you have this kind of,
mentality.
yeah,
Yeah.
the mom that's very artsy, and then
Yes.
wasn't she a painter, artist? And
She
then, yeah.
painted, yeah, and they had a Dazzle Me art studio that's all make believe
Right.
in New Orleans. So the setting here in this series is New Orleans.
Right.
Yeah.
But she
Very
does go back
good.
to Chicago for a few, for part
Well,
part.
she's from Chicago, opening
Right.
thing. She's
So,
not going back home. No way. She's
right.
just trying to
Yeah.
leave the past buried, and the past won't be
Yes.
silent. The house won't be
Yeah.
silent.
The house won't be silent. So, yes, the house really plays one of the key roles as really a character in and of itself. So, tell us a little bit more about the house.
I think the house is actually inspired. Now, your audio listeners won't be able to see this. I don't know if you can see that or not. That may be yeah, that won't
Maybe
work.
just tell us what is
Okay,
example.
so it's a picture of the antebellum home. It's called, the actual name is Madewood
Okay.
Mansion, and it's in Napoleonville, Louisiana, right on Bayou Lafourche. And
We'll put
my
a
husband,
picture of it maybe in the notes
okay,
for you.
that'd be perfect, because that kind of the fumbled that, but so beautiful, and it's an inspiration. But my husband Bruce and I have been there overnight several times. 1 year anniversary, 5 year anniversary, 10 and 20, and haven't been back since. And I'm not sure if it still operates as a bed and breakfast, but when it was, obviously that old, it's got so much history. I just have a real fascination with houses. I'm very much like Serenity, the
Okay,
kid,
the
the
sister.
sister who's saying so much about the house, got to save the house. And
That makes
Everly at one
sense.
point in the book says, what is it with you and houses? So it's a little bit like what I would think someone would say to me. And
And
we,
Serenity is like the foodie too, right? She's at the
yes,
bakery.
yes. And I had to create her vastly different than her sister, where you're thinking they can't
Yes.
possibly be from the same mom and dad, but they are. So that was really just to show, to the contrast, to emphasize how strict and regimented Everly is, that she doesn't even have an Instagram account. How can you, what's wrong with you?
Right.
So But anyway, the house just is just beautiful architecturally. It's beautiful. Henry Howard is a known historical architect. And so I kind of created, and was inspired by that as well. So,
Oh,
and so presently it was purchased in past hands in 2018. And I don't really know if the present owner is opening it up as a bed and breakfast or not, to be honest with you. So it's kind of sad.
okay. Yeah.
Um,
Oh,
anyway, that,
yeah.
and it's being restored. When I was writing this, I was in touch with the house manager, Angela Johnson, often, and I thought, well, that is the Lord right there. That this is kind of the theme of restoration, and they're actually
Right.
doing things to make it keep it up. So it's just a beautiful piece of property.
That's wonderful. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, now let's talk a little bit about the musical inspiration for the title. And you'd mentioned something about hard and soft titles that I didn't even know about, but tell us a little bit about that kind of musical connection.
So the the title "You Are the Reason" is what I would consider, what I understand to be a soft title, as opposed to Steel Rose, which is the title of a book, manuscript I'm working on right now. So soft title gives the feeling as if you're a voyeur and you're listening in on conversation as two people are talking, or one says to the other, "You are the reason." And so in the book two, Sweeter with You, and then book three is going to be When You Smile for Me. So doesn't it give you the feel that you're listening to two people, lovers in the
Yes.
situation, talking? And so
Yes.
that's what makes it soft. It's yeah, the feeling of watching the movie or reading the book, and you get to kind of listen to what how they're expressing their feelings.
Yes.
Yeah,
Oh,
so the title is literally a song title. So here I have some music to contribute
yes.
to your
Yes.
music friends.
We'll put that link to the song too in
Yeah,
the notes as
do
well.
make sure that you include. I played the clarinet in middle school and was quite
Oh,
good.
there, I will definitely
And,
put
and that's
middle
all.
school clarinetist.
And that's
Use
it.
it to motivate all my upcoming students to like play some clarinet.
Right. And
Yes.
it's okay if you don't like that and don't want to do it forever. But the lyrics to You Are the Reason, I actually saw this movie, kind of I guess more of a book trailer in my head when I was listening. And there's several different artists, but this one, I think his name is Callum, Calum Scott, maybe saying that wrong. And
Okay.
so there's a part of the lyrics say, "I'd climb every mountain and swim every ocean just to be with you and fix what I've broken, because I
Mm,
need you to see that you are the reason." And I thought of Everly saying, being far away in Chicago and realizing I'm willing to do anything to go back and fix. Well, basically, she broke. Well, it's a romance, so they have to break up. So there you go.
mm.
And then there's another lyric where Gabe, I'm thinking of him, he says, "If I could turn back the clock, I'd make sure the light defeated the dark." And she is his high school crush. And he never took the time to introduce himself to her, but he had a desperate crush on her. So he's thinking, if I now I think, she's remarried, there's no hope anymore. And now I have to work with her. So he's dealing with that unrequited love. So
Right.
that was the title I felt very led to use.
Yes,
The
it's
book.
beautiful.
Mhm.
All right. Well, I wanted to talk a little bit as well about this concept of being a creative, and we as especially writers, musicians, artists, or dancers, things like that.
Mhm.
You talk about being called to create. So can you tell us a little bit more kind of about
Mhm.
that inspiration?
Yeah, I will tell you, all of us have been around people that say, "Oh, I'm not, fill in the blank, I'm not creative." And the reality is, we're all created in the image of God. Therefore, as the creator, we are creating. And you might be creating chaos, you might be creating spreadsheets, you might be creating books or beautiful
Right.
music, but by virtue of who we are all creating. And so I just felt really, really, I was actually very inspired by this book called The Artisan Soul. Let me get this name because it's a unique name. Erwin Raphael McManus.
Oh,
McManus. And beautiful. I almost get teary when I read. It's a nonfiction, but it just really challenges you and makes you think, what am I doing? And so just a lot of aspects to that book, but that played into some of what is in the challenge that Everly and Gabe gives to her when she's talking about this limitless God. And he's saying, well, then why are you not putting that to good use? But I do feel like, that our lives are the most beautiful piece of work that we have to offer the world. And so what are we displaying? And the only qualification to be a quote creative person is to have a soul. So I guess unless you're dead, you're still breathing. So it's
right.
we are all called to create, and we are creating whether we want to acknowledge that or not. And that really humbled me. I appreciated that, because no, I cannot play violin like you do. And people will look at me and say, I could never craft a novel. That's fine, and you're probably not called to create in that way, but I can't do mortgage lending the way you do. And or again, my sister, the CPA, just an amazing brain for numbers. And I think it's
Ah.
beautiful how she does that. So,
And we need all of the different,
yes.
yeah. But can you tell us what you are kind of hoping people take away from your book, and where we
Mhm.
can find you and all of your books online or in
Well,
person?
yeah. Well, yeah, locally, of course, there's one bookstore that carries the books. And of course, Amazon is the standard answer, which is true, super easy, especially if you're a Kindle reader. But the takeaway, I think, the overriding theme is restoration, and really being willing to dream too, and to think about what would happen if I did this thing and I stepped out of my comfort zone. Would God catch me or not? And the other thing is really who we become in hardship. The
Mm,
hard things serve a purpose. They do.
right. Like your
And
leading lady. I mean, the fact that she's a widow from, I mean,
mhm.
I don't think that spoils anything because that's right
No,
up front.
no. I mean, the very opening line is, a widow would be the worst person ever to inherit a house that she believes is a widowmaker. Why would I do this?
Mm-hmm.
Why would I
Mm-hmm.
embrace this? To truly not just agree apathetically to do a thing, but to really have your heart in it and realize that I have a calling to do this. And there might be really great joy in it instead of just saying I
Yes.
did an obedient thing. So that would be, there are a lot of little messages, but those really stand out to me
And I
above
like
all.
that because even recently, my family's had to go through, like, my grandmother passed away in January, and so that, I think that connection
Mhm.
to an old house with all the historic memories, and she raised 11 kids there, and
Goodness.
my cousins, we all
Yeah.
spent lots of time there. Now our children, so I
Mhm.
really resonated with that idea of kind of your history and the
Mhm.
ancestors in the home,
Mm.
and we
Very
haven't yet
much.
known what to do with it because there's just so
Yes.
much, and I know you and I've talked, there's so much rich
Yeah.
history. Fortunately, right now, one of my uncles, my grandparents kind of adopted him from Puerto Rico back when he was
Mm.
in high school, and so he and his
Yeah.
wife have very generously come and are living in the home right now, and
Oh,
they've been
that's
doing a lot of the
wonderful.
restoration and helping
That
fix
makes
it
my
up.
heart happy. Makes my heart
Yes.
very happy. So my father passed away in March 17th. And
Hmm.
mom had already passed away 12 years before that. So as part of the grieving process. And
Yes.
and and so then there was this, my brothers were the executors for
Right.
the house, the
Hmm.
gathering place. 54
Hmm.
years of my childhood, the house.
Yes. Yes.
And it was harder on the day that that house sold than losing dad, which was very hard because he's a wonderful man. But I thought, well, I know where he is and he's happy and they're together. That wrapped up lovely for them, mom and dad. However, that plays out in heaven. But the house, just, and even for my kids, thinking grandpa's house, and
Hmm.
very interesting. And I do sometimes picture different facets of the room, and it'll hit me. It's just part of the grieving process. And all of a sudden I'm
Oh yeah.
remembering, oh, the avocado green, kitchen stovetop well that still worked from 1968 still worked. And I just picture
They made
these
things well back then.
things. Yes, absolutely. But this new family that bought it, they love the outside of it, and they're going to go in and understandably update it because we didn't invest a
Right.
whole lot in all of that. It's got a lot of things that Joanna Gaines would love to get her hands on too. And it's
Yeah.
hard to imagine somebody else is in my house. They have two dogs in my backyard. It's just this weird
Right.
thing. And the other thing, when you're talking about homes, I don't think they've moved in yet. I mean, they paid a lot for it. They
Hmm.
paid generously for it. And so they probably can't quite afford to get in there yet. And I'm like, my house is alone, isn't it? No, it's just,
Right. That was one of our concerns too. How long would it sit alone? So we were so grateful to
yeah,
have my aunt and
yeah.
uncle move in to, yeah, take care of that property, which really comes through in your story. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
yeah. Well, hopefully
Right.
you at least feel like a little part of that house could kind of live on in your writing. I talked to another
Mm-hmm.
author recently, a similar
Yeah,
kind of situation where she felt like she could preserve this
very
historic
much.
house in my
Very, very
hometown through her
much.
book. So
That's that's very much a big part of it. You're right. That's it's gotta speak for the houses.
yes, yes. Well, thank you so much
Yeah.
for talking with me
Oh,
today.
sure.
This has been a
Absolutely,
highlight of my
Ashley.
day. So
Yeah.
everyone visit
Um,
maryfelkins.com. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. MaryFelkins.com, and all over
Yes.
social media. Instagram is one of my favorite, but
Yes.
yeah,
You
wherever
always have
you
beautiful Instagram
like to hang
posts.
out. So,
Yeah.
if I'm on there too much, then I'm probably not doing what I should be doing, which is
You should be writing.
just probably
Yes.
probably
So,
some angry, abandoned, imaginary characters. But yeah,
yeah.
well, yeah, I'd
All
love
right.
to
Well, thanks.
connect with anybody.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. All right.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you, Ashley. It's been fun. I'll talk to you
Bye.
later. Bye bye.